Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. I'm Rosebud Reads, and welcome to my very festive holiday book garden. I am very excited to welcome you to our final Thousand Autumns Book 3 read, which is number 7. Sorry I was like a minute late. It has been a very busy day, and I'm sure none of you are surprised about that, being it's the holiday season, but I made it. But yeah, how's everyone doing today? While I kind of wait for people to get here, we'll do kind of some of the logistics. This is a chill stream. That means that I will be talking to myself. I will be talking to my lovely chat, as I am doing now, and I will be talking to the book. I do not own anything, nor do I make anything, but I just do this for fun. If Seven Seas ever wants to sponsor me, that would be amazing, but I highly doubt that will ever happen. So we'll just continue doing our thing and see what happens. Hello, Momar's Rover, and hello, Don May Reader 304. How are you both tonight? I hope you enjoy. This is the final stream of Book 3, Thousand Autumns. I am super excited about it because we just left off finding out that Yuwen Yong is dead. Oh, sorry. Hello, Don May Reader. Yeah. No, it's a good book. No, I'm glad you could catch it too. I mean, you would have found out in about 10 minutes after I do the intro, because I do a little recap, but yeah. Thank you. Yeah. No, it's going to be great. I have some exciting stuff before we get started, though. Yes. And the cool thing is the little Santa hands move. So they're like that. So if I'm walking, it'll be like Santa's going, woohoo! No. Tomorrow at work, it's winter headband. Or like winter accessories day. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to have the little antlers on tomorrow and have my hair up. So in little buns. So then it's like reindeer ears. So yeah, it's fun. I ended up buying like a huge pack of them, like 12 crazy headbands for Christmas when we were doing a bigger family Christmas. Nuthatch? That's awesome. No. I work with kids, so like I can get away with having ridiculous things and actually wearing them to work. Like I'd wear them outside of work easily, but like I can actually like wear it to work and it to be like acceptable. Yeah, like the cat ear hairdo. Yeah. No, but I'm excited. So I have some exciting things other than it being the final stream of Book 3 of Thousand Autumns. I got something in the mail, but I also went physically to the bookstore today because I remember posting about how my Asian bookstore apparently has a special edition version of Little Mushroom that released today. So, we're going to go to white lighting so we can actually see the correct colors. But, so this is my bookstore, Kinokuniya. But apparently this is the special edition. It is hardcover, the manhwa. So there's 1 and 2. Let's not have the light catch on it. There we go. Which is gorgeous. But the even more exciting thing is it came with freebies. which are absolutely gorgeous. I love the Liu, where he's just turning into a man. But you know, I have a special place in my heart for little mushrooms since that's where we started. But I will open these babies up. They weren't too expensive. They were like $23 each, which for Danmei stuff, especially like special edition stuff, not bad. Right? I love characters with masks. Okay. All right. And then, along with that, I will get back to that. Right? Why do Asian men look so dang good in masks? Because they're hot. But I also got The Wife Comes First. I'm super excited about this one because I love redo fics. Oh, okay. Bye, Danmei Reader. Have a good night. But that would be amazing. Oh, wait, before you go. We actually are starting what's called Days of Fanfic on Thursday, and it's every day until the end of the year, literally. Their last one's on the 31st. It's every day at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time. So like this is 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. And it starts Thursday and it goes through the end of the year. And then we will restart Thousand Autumns on the 1st at 8 o'clock. But yeah. But have a great new year, and I will see you in the next year. But yeah, no, I'll see you next time. Right? No, I'm super excited about this. It sounds great. I right now am reading all of them are pre-recorded. They'll just release at 6 o'clock. So there's a playlist that will hopefully pop up at 6 o'clock on Thursday. That's Days of Fanfic 2025. It exists in mine, but I'm thinking because all the videos are like hidden until they release, it just hasn't popped up. But I'll keep an eye on it on Thursday, and it will be there on Thursday. And then every day after. But yeah. So you can easily come back to it. It just will appear at 6. That's all. But yeah, no, I hope you enjoy. But yeah, so I'm excited about this one. But no, right now I'm reading Thrice Married to a Salted Fish. And I am excited. I like it a lot. It reminds me very much of Scumvillain, but from like the outside perspective of the characters, not Shen Qiao. Like everyone else around Shen Qiao, their perspective. No, it's so good. It's been really good. I'm only about 100 pages into Thrice Married to a Salted Fish, but I'm really liking it. So I will keep you updated. Oop, I just got a splinter. Oops. No, it's definitely a good one to have on the Christmas list. Okay. So I'm going to see what's different about this. I'm just looking. Prologue. That's so cute. He's adorable. Oh! There's extras! I didn't realize there was extras. Oh! They fell out. Little mushroom. Aw, Anja. Ooh. Oh, so pretty. They're so pretty. My goodness. No. I'm going to be bringing a lot of books on my trip. Oh my goodness, they're so gorgeous. This is going to be good. I'm guessing then that means that there's also extras in this one. Oh, there's a bookmark. There's 2 bookmarks. There's 2 bookmarks. And then on the back, we have our cute babies. I like his little pouty face. Like, no, those are going to be super cool. It's nice that I'll actually be able to understand them. Well, I'm super excited about that. I think that's it, though. Not Danmei related, but just kind of cool. I haven't tried it yet, but I did pick up this really cool looking soda. Look. It's blueberry. Surprising Awawa. But look at the cute little mascot. I like her little dimple. Yeah. I'm going to save that for tomorrow because I have game night tomorrow. So I'm excited to just be like, look at my cool soda. I don't know if it's ramune or if it's just like berry soda, but both are good. So I'm okay with whatever it is. You always need the odd Kit Kats from the local Asian grocery. Those are the best. It's like playing Bertie Bott's beans. Oh, yeah. Well, sometimes they've actually had the ramune where it's just in the bottle without the marble. I know what you mean. Ramune has that bottle, but sometimes they just like sell it. So it's hard to see like the distinction. Ooh, milk tea flavored Kit Kat could be good, or it could just be like the fake milk kind of thing. Usually Japan is pretty good about the Kit Kats. I remember there was a Game Grump episode where they like tried all the Kit Kats, and it's actually one of my favorite 10-minute power hour ones. It's either the Grumps or 10-minute power hour, where they try all these Kit Kats, and it's amazing. They get so tired of Kit Kats by the end of it because they try easily 50, if not more, Kit Kats, which is a lot of anything. But anyway, does anyone have anything else that happened since yesterday? I know I had a very interesting day at work today. Had some friends not having the best day, and it was very hard for them. But we got through it, and we will restart tomorrow. But yeah. I wish we got, or at least we like experimented more with flavors. Like where we explore more with flavors, at least around me, is like Doritos and Mountain Dews, which I also test out. I just want to know what stuff tastes like. That sounds like you're going to end up on the amazing ant list. The niblets need fun and interesting things. Although, for one of my sister-in-laws, I probably would be on her bad ant list because I go and think out of the box, and they're a bit more straight-laced and restrictive with certain things. But that sounds awesome, Truffle. I would love to get that if now or if I was a kid. That sounds so cool. Okay. So last time we had Shen Qiao basically have kind of a breakthrough, inspirationally, and kick some of He Huan sect's booties. I think that's the correct one. I think it's He Huan. And take the arm off of the bloody hand guy that killed Chu Yi and the other abbot. No, absolutely. My two older nephews love all the weird stuff that I would get them, and same thing with my younger niblets. But yeah, especially them, because they get a lot more straightforward things. So it's nice when they get something a little out of the box. One of them literally asked me, like, how do you find some of this stuff? They were looking for something for their friend. So I showed them. You just gotta get creative with the searches. That is amazing. Bobblehead duck? Like, we talking rubber duck, or we talking like mallard? Because both are amazing. Okay. Okay, we're starting about 1630. Or probably 17. So I really want to hear what you mean. But yeah. So last time, Shen Qiao they're running away. Shen Qiao and Yan Wuxi are running away from some He Huan sect people, including Byron. And basically, Shen Qiao gets put in a Buddhist temple because they get beat up. They're not doing great. They're tired. And Yan Wuxi basically pops him in there, shuts his acupoints, is like, I'm a go. And Shen Qiao gets really upset and has his breakthrough and kicks some He Huan sect people. That Merganser, a little small figure with a head on a spring. That's cool. No. And then basically kind of just went on his way, starting to head to Chang'an. I think it was Chang'an. Yes, Chang'an. And basically stops to help out all these government officials that are chained up, and displaced families, guilty officials, some conscripted laborers and convicts being sent to Chang'an on the order of government officials, and basically offers them tea because they look miserable and helps out. And he finds out Yuwen Yong has died. The emperor has died. And basically there was a coup. And he was like, excuse me? So that is where we were at yesterday. Okay, let's get started. Chapter 82, The New Emperor. The soldiers saw the great change in Shen Qiao's expression, but took it as him being unable to accept the truth so quickly. He consoled him. The previous emperor never liked Buddhism or Taoism, but now that His Majesty has ascended to the throne, the restrictions on Buddhism and Taoism have been relaxed. He's even redesigned Buddhism as the state religion. You'll be able to walk about freely in Chang'an, Taoist master. You no longer need to worry about being interrogated. Shen Qiao gave a wry smile. Was this what they meant by every cloud has a silver lining? Then why hasn't His Majesty been willing to observe? Then why wasn't His Majesty willing to observe his father's death? The moment he asked this, the two soldiers immediately grew nervous. They glanced around them, checking that no one was paying attention, then whispered, How could we know something like that? It's better not to ask too much about it, Taoist master. Shen Qiao asked further, Then, do you know what's happening with the Prince of Qi, Yuan Xian? Both soldiers shook their head, indicating that they didn't. As soldiers, they were on the bottom rung. The Prince of Xi's whereabouts, indeed, weren't something they should be concerned with. Since that was the case, there wasn't much Shen Qiao could ask. He thanked the two men and finished his tea. On seeing them prepared to resume their journey with the families of the guilty, he bid them farewell. He then loosened the reins he'd tied to a nearby fence and vaulted onto his horse before riding in the direction of Chang'an. Shen Qiao didn't notice too much change upon entering Chang'an. It was still as hectic and bustling as ever, with people coming to and fro in endless streams. Compared to the other provincial capitals he'd visited, it was many times more prosperous. The only difference was that there were more government officials on the streets, especially on the main roads to the imperial city. Some were patrolling, others were escorting criminals. There were both male and female criminals, young and old, just as Shen Qiao had seen outside the city. Fearful worry was written all over their faces, making them seem somewhat incongruent within the lively city. Shen Qiao stopped to watch them for a while. There were children in the group, and he found their crying and wailing hard to take. But he knew very well that even if he did rescue them, even if the family had been wrongly accused, he'd have no place to relocate them to. In the end, it might cause them to suffer even more. Hey, here's where the orphanage could come into place. That AU. Instead of continuing on, he could have just stopped right here and been like, hey, orphanage. Saving one family was easy. Saving all the people of this world was hard. He sighed to himself and averted his gaze, then turned and left. He first went to the junior preceptor's residence, Yan Wushi's original residence in the capital. He didn't approach the building, only gazed at it from afar. Unsurprisingly, the manor had already been sealed off. The gates were locked, the yard before the main building deserted. Right? He's kind of in too deep at that point to take a different path. I mean, fair, but I could see part of him being like, this was pointless. I'm done. We're making an orphanage. It's going on the hill over there. Give me all the babies. All the babies. I will protect them. Let's wrap it up. The gates were locked, the yard before the main building deserted. Land in the capital was enormously expensive, and this was the only area that even the carriages avoided, as though everyone is afraid they'd be implicated in a crime and so kept their distance. Though there was a couple of vegetable sellers nearby with people purchasing from them, a close look at their expressions was enough to tell that something was off. They didn't seem like normal vendors, but more like they were purposely loitering in the area. He doesn't even have to ask. The kid distribution system would just provide. Pretty much. It has so far. In the past, Shen Qiao wouldn't have thought twice about approaching these people and asking questions, but now, having spent enough time with Yan Wuxi, he'd been subconsciously influenced. He also knew it was best to observe all the minutiae. At this time, he'd sensed that something was amiss, so he didn't approach them further. Bianyan Mei had two houses in the capital. One was the official mansion gifted by Yuwen Yong, similar to the junior preceptor's residence, while the second was a private manor few people knew about, though it still wasn't a secret. Last time Shen Qiao had been in Chang'an, Bianyan Mei had misunderstood his relationship with Yan Wuxi and personally showed him the place, then warmly welcomed Shen Qiao inside as a guest. Shen Qiao hadn't known whether to laugh or cry. He was betrayed so much he learned caution. Poor buddy. Right? The official mansion was like the junior preceptor's residence. It'd been sealed off, and there were people in disguise around it, secretly monitoring the area. However, the private residence was still there, and though the gates were shut, they weren't locked. The private manor of Bianyan Maze was located in the depths of an alley in the west of the city. Those living nearby were mostly gentry scholars with modest family properties, lacking the endless streams of senior officials' carriages or the din of a merchant's market place. It made for an excellent hiding place. Shen Qiao didn't open the gates. Instead, he vaulted over the wall. With his natural martial arts, even this leap was made soundlessly, his poise confident and graceful. The manor was rather tidy and clean, the plants neatly arranged. There wasn't a speck of dust anywhere, but it was cold and deserted, without a trace of life. That does count as a yeet. You're right, Truffle. A self-yeet. Shen Qiao walked around the interior once, pushing open every door and entering every building, but found nothing. Where had Bien Yanmei gone? In recent years, Huan Yue Sek's influence had been coupled with the regime of Northern Shou. Yuwen Yong had granted them a lofty position and relied on them like his left and right limbs. Chang'an was equivalent to Huan Yue Sect's main headquarters, but of the three demonic sects, Huan Yue Sect was a bit special. Yan Wuxi had only accepted 2 disciples, Bianyan Mei and Yu Shengyan, while the rest of their forces were scattered across different locations, giving the impression that they were lacking in manpower. Now that everyone had left the capital, hunting for them was like searching for a needle within the ocean. A small sound suddenly came from the western wing. It was very faint and sounded like someone had accidentally bumped into a table. And it just happened to come from the last building that Shen Qiao had yet to investigate. The person in the house seemed to be suppressing their breathing as much as possible, but with Shen Qiao's ears, he could still hear them clearly. He pushed the door open and slowly walked towards the folding screen. The sound of stifled breathing grew heavier and heavier. Shen Qiao stopped in front of the bed, then bent down and reached out. A surprised shout came from beneath the bed. Before Shen Qiao could touch the other person, a small figure had already scampered out, running towards the door. Hey, there's our child! The kid distribution system strikes again! Didn't have to wait long. A small figure had already scampered out, running towards the door. But she hadn't gotten very far when she suddenly halted in place, and even her mute acupoint had been tapped, leaving her unable to make a sound. She could only show an expression of great terror. Duckling attractor activated. He really does have a knack for finding kids. He so does. That's because they realize how good he is. She could only show an expression of great terror. Don't be afraid, she heard someone say. I came here in search of an old friend, but I didn't expect my old friend's entire family to have moved away. The handsome, almost otherworldly Taoist explained gently as he circled to stand in front of her. That's why I entered to take a look. Who are you? Someone like this didn't seem like a bad person, no matter how she looked at it. Her heartbeat slowly calmed down. Shen Qiao unsealed her mute acupoint. The girl was quite young, and the dust all over her face failed to conceal the fair skin beneath. Judging by her clothing, she should be from a wealthy aristocratic family, a child who'd been pampered from birth. He had no idea why she'd run here. Who are you? The girl gathered her courage to ask back. Shen Qiao smiled. My name is Shen Qiao. I'm a Taoist priest from Xuandu Mountain. Shen Qiao? The girl seemed to ponder it. Shen as in elm sap from the Book of Rites, and Qiao as in Mount Yuan Qiao from Liaizi question of Tang? Yes, precisely those two characters. Shen Qiao marveled at this girl's depth of knowledge at so young an age. And which family are you from? Why are you hiding here? Oh, look at this sweetie. She's so cute. What a sweet little bun. Like, she's so scared, but like, she's so cute. Poor baby. I love her little pigtails. Yeah, it's a cute illustration. And then Shen Qiao in the background is so surprised. He's like, what? Sweeties. So sweet, sweeties. Ultimately, the girl was still small. Regardless of how mature she seemed, she couldn't maintain the image for too long. When she heard his words, her face washed over with relief. I heard Uncle mention Taoist Master Shen before. Taoist Master Shen wasn't ordered to find me, was he? Shen Qiao was left a bit confused by her digression. Who's your uncle, and who would have ordered me? I'm a Yan from the Duo family. My mother is Princess Xiangyang. Shen Qiao finally understood. So your uncle should be the previous emperor? Yeah, she definitely needs protection. Very much so. Duo Yan nodded. My home is being monitored. Those people wanted to enter the palace and meet His Majesty, so I had to secretly run away. At first, I planned to come here and look for Uncle Bien, but I didn't find anyone. And there are people looking for me outside, so I'm too scared to leave. Shen Qiao frowned. Just what is going on? Your mother is the previous emperor's older sister and the current emperor's aunt. Who would dare to make things difficult for you? Just as he said these words, he realized, other than the emperor, who would dare to make things difficult for them? So it had to be the emperor, didn't it? Duo Yan bit her lip as if she found it hard to talk about. Shen Qiao decided not to keep pressing her for answers. Instead, he gently said, I'm afraid the people here have long left already. It's pointless to stay here waiting for them. Why don't you head home first? With your mother there, surely His Majesty wouldn't dare do anything. No, I can't go home. Duoyan repeatedly shook her head. If I go home, His Majesty will summon me to the palace, and Mother and Father won't be able to stop him. My life will be in danger. Hearing the seriousness of the situation from her words, Shen Qiao was also temporarily at a loss. He was about to ask her plans. He was about to ask about her plans now when a loud burst of noise came from outside. Footsteps soon followed, coming in their direction. Then right after, there was the sound of the manor's gates being forcibly shoved open. What happened? Then right after, there was the sound of the manor gates being forcefully shoved open. This isn't an important location. Its residents have probably already left. There's no need for your lot to come in. I can go in and check by myself. The voice saying those words was somewhat familiar, and after Shen Qiao thought hard for a while, he recalled a person. Puliru Jian. Alarmed, Du Yan hid behind him and tugged at his sleeve. Let's go! Hurry! Let's go! Murphy's Law working overtime here. Very much so. Like, Murphy's Law is like best friends with Shen Qiao's patients. They're both working overtime. When she saw that Shen Qiao didn't move, she paused her steps, then directly ran back into the first building. She'd probably gone to hide beneath the bed again. Duoyan had just run inside when Puliru Jian strode over, and he just happened to come face to face with Shen Qiao still in the courtyard. Shen Qiao's expression was placid. Instead, it was Furifuricchin who was stunned at the sight of him. You. He just managed to say that one word when he immediately shut his mouth again. He sent a glance outside, then gestured at Shen Qiao, signaling for him to stay quiet. Shen Qiao understood the hint and nodded his head, waiting for Furifuricchin to speak first. Furifuricchin's eyebrows knitted tighter and tighter as various expressions flickered over his face. It seemed like he was hesitating over what to say. Instead, it was Duo Yan who moved first. When she heard no further sounds from within the building, she couldn't help but tiptoe out, plastering herself against the wall to peek outside. But though she thought she was being sneaky, Furifuricchin noticed her. Surprise came over his face as he walked forward. Duo Yan was so frightened she almost ran back inside. Does Taoist Master Shen know where Bian Dafu has gone? He put all his effort into keeping his voice as low as possible, but he spoke at a rapid-fire pace. Of course, Shen Qiao shook his head. I have received a request that I am unable to fulfill at present, said Furifuricchin. So I can only trouble Taoist Master Shen to lend me a hand. Please help me escort the Duo family's young lady to the Su family for refuge. Su family? Shen Qiao's face betrayed his puzzlement. The Duke of Meiyang County's residence. Right at this moment, a loud voice came from outside. Dare this one ask if the Duke of Sui has found anything? Does he require this lowly one's assistance? Furifuricchin quickly replied in a loud voice, No need! I'm coming out now! He was unable to further explain and could only cup his hands at Shen Qiao before turning and leaving in a hurry. The faint sounds of conversation came from the gates. After a moment, the entire group left and the gates were closed and locked once more. Duo Yan poked her head out of the building, her expression anxious. Shen Qiao said to her, Everyone is left. The Duke of Su asked me to bring you to the residence of the Duke of Meiyang County first to take refuge there. What do you think? Duo Yan thought for a while. That will do. The Duke of Meiyang County has always been on good terms with Father. Father should have made the request. Then I must trouble Taoist Master Shen. Will this be a burden on you? Shen Qiao smiled. No, not at all. It is no harder than lifting a finger. He picked up Duo Yan, lightly vaulted over the wall, and followed her directions, taking the side roads to the Su residence. Duo Yan had never seen such perfected qigong before, and she spent the entire journey gaping in astonishment. By the time they arrived at the Su residence's back gates, her gaze toward Shen Qiao was filled with awe and reverence. Shen Qiao couldn't help but stroke her head with its double buns. Then he entered the Su residence by once again vaulting over the wall by the back gates. Such a polite young lady, precious. She really does sound like it. It sounds like she's been raised in a pretty important family, but then also like actually has manners, which is nice. Then he entered the Su residence by once again vaulting over the wall by the back gates. Duo Yan whispered the directions to him. After we pass this courtyard, the second building ahead of us is the study. I've gone there with Father before. The Duke of Meiyang County is usually there during the daytime. Yeah, she definitely has a fair amount of guts, too. With Shen Qiao's abilities, infiltrating the Su residence was a bit like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. Su Wei was perfectly at peace, reading in his study, when two figures, one large and one small, suddenly shoved the doors open and entered. Caught off guard, he almost yelled in shock. Fortunately, he did recognize Shen Qiao and Duo Yan, and he forced down the words he'd been about to blurt out before switching to a more normal tone. Taoist Master Shen, Duo Nyang. So literally, that means second daughter and can be seen as the female counterpart to Erlong. Duo Yan slid down from Shen Qiao's arms and said crisply, "Uncle, please don't be alarmed. Yan didn't come here with any ill intentions." Su Wei quickly rose and opened the door, peering outside. When he determined that no one was eavesdropping, he closed it again, then asked behind him, "Why did you come here? Yan, I heard that the Duo residence has been surrounded by His Majesty's people. They're looking for you." Duo Yan spoke, downcast. "Yes, it's my fault. I brought so much trouble to my parents. His Majesty fears that my parents have hidden me away, so now he's currently keeping a close eye on my family. I can't return for now. I can only come and plead for Uncle to protect me." "I met the Duke of Sui at the Bian residence," Shen Qiao said. "He was the one who asked us to come find Duke Su." Sui sighed. "Very well. Come with me." He didn't ask for more details. He must have already known about the situation beforehand. Instead, it was Shen Qiao who felt like something had been going on that was outside of his expectations since he'd entered Chang'an. All he could do now was take things as they came. Su Wei stood to push aside a bookshelf, revealing the secret entrance hidden behind it. Then he led them through the door and through a hidden passageway until they finally arrived in another building. This building wasn't dark. Sunlight could enter through the windows, which were shaded on the outside by a tree. The rays filtered faintly through the leaves and into the building. If it were summer, the building would be an excellent place to spend a vacation in, but in the same way, its location was well concealed and difficult to discover. Next to the window stood a man, facing away from them with his arms behind his back. When Su Wei pushed the door open to enter, the man turned and saw Duo Yan. He couldn't help his astonishment. Nyang? Duo Yan's behavior the entire trip had been rather precocious, but when she saw this man, she couldn't stop herself from wailing, "Fifth uncle! My uncle, the previous emperor, was killed by my cousin!" All three men's faces paled with shock. Dun, dun, dun! Ooh. Oh my goodness, I'm yawning so much. Wake up. Brr. Okay. 83. Actually, before we start, I'm gonna use some lotion. My hands are cracking. I love winter because I'm not a hot weather person. But this is a part of winter that I can do without. The cracking hands. There it is. The plot thickens. That it does. Just a sec. Yeah. It doesn't help that, like, I don't like full gloves. I like fingerless gloves, which when you are working outside for an hour, like, don't do as much as they should. But I'm stubborn. Okay. Chapter 83, which will start at 45. Oh, no, I can't get the lid off of my pen. 45. Chapter 83, Alarming Danger. Erniang, do you know what you're saying? Yuan Xian almost suspected his ears had failed him. Duoyan sniffled. I saw everything. I was just to the side. His Majesty was on the bed, gravely ill. Then cousin came over, and he said, When says I don't own any fingerless gloves, that's just instant frostbite. Yeah, I know. Having suddenly met her close family member, she was a little agitated and flustered, unable to even form complete sentences. Yuan Xian placed a firm hand on her shoulder and helped her sit. Don't panic, he said. Take your time. Su Wei personally poured some water and handed it to her. Holding the warm cup, Duo Yan gradually regained the strength to speak. Cousin came over to visit His Majesty, she said. But then he said to him, Why haven't you died yet? The sooner you die, the sooner I can succeed the throne. Every day you linger is another day I can't relax. I went to all this trouble to get you bedbound in the first place, yet you won't stop breathing, tormenting me for no reason. Duo Yan was a precocious child and well versed in the classics, so it wasn't difficult for her to repeat this conversation word for word. Previously, she'd even astonished Yuwen Yong, telling him to uphold his responsibilities towards the country, even in the face of slander, and to not treat Empress Ashina so coldly. Yuwen Yong adored this niece of his very much, even lamenting that she hadn't been born a man. He'd raised her since she was small, keeping her close by. When Duo Yan was even younger, she'd spent several years in the palace. Though she returned home later, she could still enter and leave the palace freely without needing to pass through layers of checkpoints like most other people. Duo Yan was renowned for her intelligence in the imperial family. Yuan Xian didn't doubt the veracity of her words in the slightest, and his shock and outrage were plain on his face. He really said something like that? Duo Yan nodded. After His Majesty fell ill, Cousin's long repressed temper gradually began to reveal itself. I don't want to meet him too much, so when I heard that he was coming, I found myself a place to hide within the bedchamber. That's how I heard Cousin say that to His Majesty. His Majesty was furious and called him unfilial and insolent. He even wanted to have someone draft an imperial edict to remove the crown prince, but Cousin told His Majesty not to waste his efforts. And then... Her hands clasped around the cup and her face was pale. She was unable to conceal her terror. It was as if she'd returned to the scene on that day when she'd hidden behind the thick curtain and saw, through a gap in the drapes, Yun standing next to the Emperor's bed. He'd leaned over, drawn up the blankets covering Yuwen Yun's body, and then he smothered His Majesty! Yuwen Yun smothered His Majesty! I saw it all! Du Yan began to sob, unable to stop herself. This poor little girl. Like, she just wanted to go visit her uncle. Cousin? Uncle? I think it's uncle. And she sees him be murdered. Like, that is awful. Yuan Xian's expression flickered like the shifting clouds. He was frozen in place, stunned into silence. It's always an uncle. Su Wei took a look of unfading horror. He'd always done his best to avoid court politics, to live peacefully away from any government offices. He'd refused to take up any official position, no matter the invitations Yuwen Yong sent. The only reason he'd taken the risk to shelter Yuan Xian was due to his close personal relationships with the likes of him and Puliuru Jian. He'd never expected to hear such an earth-shattering inside story about a treasonous plot for imperial power. Fathers and sons slaughtering each other within the imperial household was no shocking news, but Yuwen Yong had already been instated as crown prince for a long time. The imperial throne was set to pass into his hands sooner or later. If even under these circumstances Yuwen Yong had been so impatient, so eager to kill his father, he was truly devoid of all conscience. Shen Qiao asked Duo Yan, Yuwen Yong knew that you overheard him. Is that why he's seeking to capture you? Duo Yan nodded, her eyes red. As I was hiding inside, I didn't dare to move even a little. I was terrified that Yuwen Yong would find me, so I only came out after he left. When he went outside and announced the news of His Majesty's death, I took advantage of the chaos to rush out. But Yuwen Yong saw me and suspected that I saw him murder His Majesty, so he sent people to my house to tell me he wanted me to enter the palace under the pretext of wishing to reminisce with his cousin. Do your father and Princess Xiang Yang know about this? Asked Su Wei. Cousin has always been paranoid, she replied. I was afraid that if they knew what happened, they'd let something slip in front of him, so I dared not reveal anything to them. Mother and father believe I am only racked with grief over the previous emperor's passing. Cousin sent people to our house as soon as he ended the national mourning period. I am afraid that mother and father won't be able to stop him, so I secretly ran away by myself. I wanted to go to the Bian residence and seek help there, but it turned out everyone was already gone. At this moment, there came the sound of knocking. Su Wei opened the door and went out. A moment later, he returned with a bowl of piping hot noodle soup. If that voice gets too annoying, just let me know. I can stop doing it. A Yan must be hungry, he said. Eat something first. Duo Yan was only a young child after all, not even yet 10. Regardless of how bright and composed she was, she had gone without meals for some time. When she saw that bowl of noodle soup, she couldn't stop herself from drooling. She lowered her head and began to eat without a second word, the composure from her lavish upbringing vanishing without a trace as she practically wolfed the soup down. Yuan Xian's heart ached at the sight. He couldn't help but say, Eat slowly, lest you choke. Thank you. Did the former emperor fail to realize that Yuwen Yong was such a person? Asked Shen Qiao. Thank you. He too had met Yuwen Yong once, and the man hadn't seemed like he was so foolish. Su Wei realized that he'd yet to introduce Shen Qiao, so he said to Yuwen Xian, Your Highness, the Prince of Qi, this is Taoist Master Shen from Xuandu Mountain. Yuwen Xian sighed. Taoist Master Shen might not be aware, but back when the former emperor was still alive, he was very strict in disciplining the crown prince. He knew that the crown prince was an alcoholic, so he forbade so much as a drop of alcohol from entering the eastern palace. The crown prince has been dissatisfied for a long time, but as long as the former emperor was alive, he could only buckle down and endure it. He didn't need to say anything more. Shen Qiao already understood. Because Yuwen Yong had repressed himself for so long, his nature had inevitably become twisted, turning him tyrannical and murderous. But his father had been in his prime, and he didn't know when he'd be able to succeed the throne. Unable to wait any longer, he went in for the kill. As for when Yuwen Yun would have been able to assassinate Yuwen Yong by himself, whether Yuwen Yun would have been able to assassinate Yuwen Yang by himself, even considering his status as crown prince, that question was irrelevant at the moment. Yuwen Yang had prohibited Buddhism and Taoism, vanquished northern Qi, and he'd been prepared to go to war with the Gokturks. His enemies were everywhere, and there were many who'd been willing to work with Yuwen Yun to bring him down. Even considering only Empress Ashina, who was conveniently in the position closest to Yuwen Yang, she would have had far more opportunities than most. Shen Qiao suddenly thought of Yan Wuxi and his previous evaluation of Yuan Xian, his inferences on Northern Shou's imperial court and its situation. Right now, one by one, they were coming true. When he recalled that scene within the small temple, his heart trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but draw in a deep breath to forcibly suppress it. I heard outside the city that Yuwen Yun has been busy erecting new buildings and constructing palaces, he added, and that he's also arrested many people who submitted memorials advising him against this. Shen Qiao was a citizen from Shou, and Yuwen Yun was also very unpopular. No one thought it inappropriate that he addressed the emperor by name. It's a long story, said Zue. After the former emperor passed away, in accordance with the rites, he should have been in mourning for over a month. But His Majesty only observed it for a dozen or so days before he declared the mourning period over. Many people from the court submitted their advice at the time, asking His Majesty to observe filial piety, but His Majesty said that since the ancestors of the Yuan clan were Xianbei people, that there was no need to observe Han etiquette and that the ministers shouldn't babble nonsense about the affairs of the imperial family. If anyone tried to advise him afterward, he unilaterally declared them rebels and traitors, then punished them with flogging and exiled their entire families from the capital. His Majesty also complained that the palace he currently lived in was too cramped and lacked the splendor appropriate of the imperial family, Yuan Xian added. Therefore, he wanted to renovate the palace and build a garden outside it for members of the royal family to hunt in. The previous leadership's conquest of Qi had already exhausted a fair amount of both manpower and finances, but the former emperor refused to impose heavier taxes on the common folk. Instead, he had his people confiscate all the valuables obtained from the Qi palace and place them in the national treasury. But the moment His Majesty ascended the throne, he took these valuables and transferred them into his personal treasury. He smiled bitterly. Many people submitted memorials because of this and were quashed by His Majesty. The more I hear about the previous emperor, the more I kind of respect him, just because, he sounds like he was a pretty good leader. Strict, for sure. Had many opinions, definitely. But, the not raising taxes? Gotta respect it. Would the Shao dynasty fortunes that had seemed to be rising like the sun truly come to an end in his son's hands? Yuan Xian shook his head. The Taoist master is focused on the martial path, so he may not understand the intrigue and infighting that takes place within the imperial court. With this move, His Majesty appears to be diverting funds for his own use, but in truth, he's using the opportunity to eliminate dissentence and probe out the people who are truly loyal to him. Those strongly attached to the previous emperor, or those who are unwilling to wholeheartedly follow His Majesty. His Majesty will naturally take the initiative to uproot them, lest he leave behind any lurking perils. After all, His Majesty spent many years as the crown prince, so he is naturally experienced when it comes to plotting and scheming like a ruler. Indeed, said Sue icily. He's completely ignorant in the matters of statesmanship, but a born genius when it comes to eliminating dissenters. To the point, His Highness the Prince of Qi was forced to seek me out for refuge. Yeah, the previous emperor was pretty decent as emperors go. Very much. Yuwen Xian let loose a bitter chuckle. Recalling how Yan Wuxi once spoke of wishing to support Yuwen Xian, Shen Qiao said, "If this humble Taoist may speak frankly, there goes an old saying. Just causes will garner great support, while unjust ones find little. I fear that Yuwen Yun's perverse actions have rendered the previous emperor's blood and sweat to naught, and the Shou dynasty's excellent prospects will also be ruined as a result. Now that Qi has been annexed, it's on shaky footing. The Gok Turks are also eyeing the situation covetously as they wait for an opportunity to take action, but the Prince of Qi has always been a man of prestige." Yuan Xian gestured his acknowledgement. He didn't put on any act of being alarmed or bewildered. Rather, he said with a dejected expression, "I know what Taoist Master Shen wishes to say. After His Majesty ascended the throne, he confiscated my military authority and ordered others to monitor my residence day and night. My entire household, both young and old, are being held under house arrest. Leaving aside the great kindness the previous emperor showed me, I've never possessed such intentions. If I really did conspire against the state, wouldn't I be doing exactly as he wants and making it easy for him to brand me a rebel and traitor? Taoist Master Shen might not be aware," said Sue, "but after the previous emperor passed, His Majesty began removing the bans he'd imposed one by one. He also reinstated Buddhist Master Shu Ting as state preceptor. The noble consort Yuan, currently by his side, is also a lay disciple of the Buddhist masters. With a great Buddha like Shu Ting overseeing things, eliminating Yuan Yun through assassination would be completely impossible. To say it more directly, as someone who held little leverage, Yuwen Xian was unwilling to start an open conflict over this issue. Duo Yan had long finished her noodles. Her complexion had become rosy again as she listened intently to the conversation. Yuan Xian took notice of this and smiled. "I haven't thanked the Taoist master for escorting Ayan here." "It was no hardship," said Shen Qiao. "The Prince of Qi need not dwell on it." "Did you come here for important matters in Chang'an, Taoist master?" Yuan Xian asked. "I was entrusted with something by an old friend," said Shen Qiao. "I'd come to the capital, wanting to see how the former emperor was doing, but unexpectedly I was a step too late." "That old friend you speak of, is it Junior Preceptor Yan?" "Correct. Even as early as the group ambush, sect leader Yan had already foreseen that great changes might suddenly descend upon the capital. Before, he said to me that if anything should happen to the former emperor, I should look for the Prince of Qi." Yuan Xian smiled bitterly. "I understand what sect leader Yan meant, but he overestimated me. As of now, I hold very little military authority. What would I gain from starting a war other than creating rivers of blood and causing innocent people to lose their lives?" "But your Highness surely can't sit idle and wait for your demise," Sue protested. "You've led troops for many years and hold incredible prestige among the military. You may have no soldiers now, but if you rise and sound the call, many people will answer. At that point, there may still be a chance to turn things around." Ken Wuxi in the distance. "I have no friends!" Yeah, right, Truffle? And what if Yuwen Yong holds my family hostage? Yuwen Xian said angrily. What can I do then? Are you saying that I should disregard their lives and focus only on achieving the throne? Then what difference would there be between Yuwen Yong and myself? Such actions are neither reasonable nor justifiable. Yuwen Yong is the rightful successor. Even if he really did that to the previous emperor, how many people could know? If I bring my men and charge into the palace with Shu Ting there, he could easily take Yuwen Yong and retreat. And they could declare him king in some other place, and the Shou imperial court would be plagued with internal strife once more. The north we managed to unify with such difficulty would vanish completely. Those were the things my brothers and I laboriously fought for all these years. How can I watch myself become the criminal who plunged the Shou dynasty into turmoil? Su Wei said nothing. Duo Yan seemed to understand. Tears on the verge of falling glimmered in her eyes. Shen Qiao couldn't hold back yet another sigh. Some people were bound from birth to be kind and tender-hearted. It didn't matter whether they'd killed before or how many they might have killed. During these times of turmoil, those types could never become conquerors of great and ruthless ambition. Even if Yuwen Xian knew what to do, he still wouldn't be able to do it. Wu Wei, you've always been reluctant to interact with the imperial clan, he went on. The reason we can be so amicable and close is because I'm different from the imperial clan members who place so little importance on human life. But now you're actually urging me to take that road? Su Wei gave a long sigh, then cupped his hands in a bow. I was the one who misspoke. Please forgive me, Your Highness. Yuan Xian stopped him. You're the one who understands me best. Others might say that I was born a rich aristocrat with military power, that I galloped across the battlefields and slaughtered countless enemies, but if I had a choice, I would never have joined the army. I'd rather find a place with verdant hills and crystal waters, take my entire household there, and do some gardening. That would be a true paradise on earth. God, that's giving Wei Wuxian cottage vibes so much right now. He's like, I legit just want to live peacefully in my mountain or in a cabin with my friend. But the heavens toy with men. Now the mighty Prince of Qi, renowned throughout the land, could only hide here and languish. Seeing everyone in low spirits, Yuan Xian instead took the initiative to ask Shen Qiao, what does the Taoist master intend to do? Shen Qiao thought for a moment. Does the Prince of Qi know where Bian Yan Mei went? All these guys just want to get away from the drama to live in cabins or run orphanages. I mean, in this current political situation, that doesn't sound too bad. Let's be real. That's all I'm going to say about it. I'm done. Continuing on. Yuan Xian shook his head. After the previous emperor passed, the Bian residence was vacated overnight. No one knows where they went. I suppose Bian Xiang must have long anticipated the current disaster, so he fled very early on. He's much more far-sighted than I am. If Taoist Master Shen doesn't mind, said Sue, why not stay at our Su residence for now? You did us a great favor in the past, and it's often on my mother's mind. My younger brother also admires Taoist Master Shen's moral character and martial arts. Now that this coincidence has occurred, I could also bring my mother and brother to pay you a proper visit. I, I immediately thought, don't we all, the moment I wrote that? Yep, it doesn't sound that bad. Yuwen Yong had died and Bian Mei had disappeared. Though Shen Qiao wished to find Yan Wuxi quickly, he had no idea where to start searching. He could only slowly make inquiries about Huan Yue sex or He Huan sex activities. Chang'an was well connected as a location. News arrived here much faster than it did in other places, so staying here temporarily wouldn't be a bad choice. They have a point a lot of the time. I have an OC in the Modao Zushi fanfic who wants to retire at 18 to practice medicine and raise cats and tea. There's oh gosh, what story is it? It's one of those where Wei Wuxian leaves the Jiang sect, and it's like a cousin of Jiang Chang that ends up taking over the first disciple position. And he literally is like looking at Jiang Chang when he's starting drama, and he's like, dude, I just want to marry a nice woman and like go have like some kids. Like I don't want to be in this war. I don't want this drama. I just want to go like live my life away from your drama right now. I'll have to think about what fic that is. If I remember it, I'll post it in the posts. If I don't, I'll find it eventually and maybe remember. But yeah, no. Doesn't sound too bad. Just living your life. Okay. With that in mind, Shen Qiao replied, then I'll be troubling the Duke of Meiyang County. Sui smiled. You need not be so courteous, Taoist master. You can simply call me Wu Wei. They were still talking when they heard a knock from outside. Su Wei went to open the door and was greeted by a trusted maid standing beyond it. Sir, two people have arrived at the back door, one adult and one child. The former said he was a personal soldier of the Prince of Qi named Yan Ying. He said that he's come with the youngest master from the Prince of Qi's residence and wishes to speak with your highness. Su Wei frowned. How did they know that the Prince of Qi was here with me? But Yuan Xian answered, if it's Yan Ying, he truly is one of my right-hand men in my army. Perhaps it was my princess consort who told him to bring Qi Lang here for refuge. Let's allow them in first. I'll go meet them. The kid has been acting as a sect leader for his minor sect and hates every second of it. His sister is the actual sect leader, but everyone thinks she's dead. Yeah. I'd never want to go into politics. It just sounds and seems awful. So I totally get why he feels that. Sue led them through the dark passage they'd taken earlier, moving from the study to the guest hall, where the maid hurriedly left to deliver his message. After a moment, a young man entered, followed by the maid, with a young boy in his arms. Yuan Xian was both surprised and delighted. Yan Ying, you brought Qilang with you? The other man fell to his knees with a thud, his eyes filled with hot tears. Your Highness, you've worried Yan Ying so much. Rise, rise, said Yuan Xian brightly. Men should not shed tears so easily. Why are you kneeling? Stand up. He took the little boy from Yan Ying's arms, and the child held Yuan Xian's face with both hands. After staring at him intently for a while, he suddenly said, Father, you've lost weight. Yuan Xian hugged him tightly. It was a long time before he finally let go. How did you find this place? He asked. Ever since your highness vanished, the capital has been flooded with wild rumors, saying that the bastard Yuwen Yong was... He trailed off under Yuan Xian's stare. Reluctantly, he amended that the emperor was keeping you under house arrest in the palace. Prince of Qi's residence has been surrounded for many days, so we were all beside ourselves with worry. But without your word, we dared not take any action. Wei Shu said that we should act in case something happens at the residence, so he had me seek out the princess consort to ask for your whereabouts. Then bring all the little masters out, one by one, and escort them somewhere safe in case the emperor does something in a rage. So the princess consort had you take Qilang away? Yuan Xian said. Yes, said Yan Ying. She said that Qilang is the youngest and has yet to be registered in the genealogy records, so even if something happens, he'd be hard to track down. That's why she had me bring Qilang to you. His own princess consort had already thought of the worst-case scenario. Yuan Xian's heart ached, and he could only clutch the little boy tighter. But Sui's face was grave. Tell us, was it Wu Xian who told you to do this? Did anyone follow or see you when you were making your way over with Qilang? Yan Ying thought long and hard. There shouldn't be, he said. I was very careful. He just finished speaking when Shen Qiao's expression shifted, and suddenly he stood up. Everyone couldn't help but look at him. Taoist Master Shen, there are many soldiers on horses coming this way right now. Everyone's expressions abruptly filled with alarm. Sui roared, Quick! Into the secret passage! Yan Yang slapped his thigh in frustration. Could it be? Did that bastard Wei Shu predict the princess consort would trust me and tell me your whereabouts? Is that why he told me to seek her out, so that he could tail me here? As they spoke, a large troop of soldiers on horses had already arrived outside the Su residence, and they pounded thunderously on the gates like a raging flood. Could even be heard in the guest hall, far as it was. The Su residence's steward rushed over to report. Master, we're in trouble. There are a lot of people outside, and they say that they're here to apprehend the Prince of Qi on His Majesty's orders. If we don't open the gates, they'll storm right in. What should we do? Yuan Xian gave a long sigh. Fortune and misfortune are both determined by fate. What's ordained to come must come. Fate has ordained that I'm unable to escape. Go open the residence gates. I'll depart with them. They must not hurt anyone in the Su family. Su Wei stopped in his tracks. What do you mean, go? Even if you don't go, my Su family will still be indicted for harboring a fugitive. Why worry so much? You go hide first, and I'll go deal with them. Surely they wouldn't dare to tear down our house. It seems that the Duke of Meiyang County has no respect for His Majesty whatsoever. He'd rather harbor a fugitive and bring down his entire family. A cold laugh drifted over from afar, yet it was crisp and clear. Ha 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 ha. Su Wei, who had no internal cultivation at all, suddenly felt each of those words drumming against his heart, making it jolt hard. At the head of the people who entered was Yuwen Qing, whom Shen Qiao had traveled to Chen with. But he wasn't the one who had spoken. It was someone behind him. This man was no stranger to Shen Qiao either. When he saw Shen Qiao, a slight expression of surprise crossed his face. Then he immediately sneered. Taoist Master Shen, what a small world. How come I always meet you wherever I go? Ron Shen Qiao said coolly. Is Chen Gong well? Ron Shen smiled. Naturally, he's doing very well. I forgot to tell Taoist Master Shen. His Majesty has already named my master the Duke of Shao for his great service of bringing him the Tai Yi sword. It's like a cockroach. He just doesn't die. Chapter 84, 120. '84. Kill to the last. Chen Gong had split open Tai Yi's hilt with carnelian back underground in Ruoqiang, retrieving the Zhu Yang strategy scroll inside. To think that he'd bring the sword back with him and have it reforged. It was a famous sword from the Warring States period, and its reputation had swelled because of Qing Shi Huang, who was the first emperor of unified China who established the Qing dynasty. It was as though anyone possessing that sword would become the ruler of the entire world. It no longer had any use to Chen Gong, but gifting it to Yuwen Yong was obviously an attempt at pleasing him, and he'd succeeded. Since Shen Gong could take to bring Gao Wei's subordinate like a fish to water, it was little trouble to him to deal with Yuwen Yong, who was a similar kind of man. As they watched a large group of men on horses surge in from outside, enclosing the Sioux residence within a watertight circle, the faces in the room took on a myriad of expressions, some terrified, some enraged, and some collected. Sue's mother, Madame Chin, had also seen the disturbance. She walked out, accompanied by her second son, Shu Qiao. Su Qiao had spent much time wandering the Jianghu and didn't possess the same restraint as those involved in government. The moment he saw what was going on, his tone froze over. "What are you trying to do, Yuan Qing? My Su family has done nothing wrong nor offended anyone. Why are you bringing all these strays here?" At the implication that he was a stray, anger flashed across Mu Rongqin's face, but he immediately suppressed it. Yuan Qing seemed to have been suddenly assigned to this task and absolutely didn't want any clashes with the Su family. Hearing these words, he smiled. "Su Erlang, it's been a while. A few days ago, I heard that you went to Qingchang Mountain. I didn't expect you to return so soon." Then he turned and greeted Yuan Xian, Su Wei, and Madame Qin one by one. He also spoke to Shen Qiao like a familiar friend. "Taoist Master Shen, since our last parting, this Qing has often kept you in his thoughts. I trust that your health has improved greatly." Shen Qiao inclined his head. "Thank you for your concern. I've gotten much better." That's good, that's good." Thanks to Yuan Qing's quick thinking, the tense atmosphere instantly relaxed quite a bit. Only now did Yuan Qing cup his hands at Yuan Xian, getting down to business. "Someone has accused the Prince of Qi," he explained. "They said that the Prince of Qi was involved in the previous emperor's illness and passing. His Majesty is furious and ordered me to bring you to the palace so you could explain yourself. If it's a wrongful accusation, you will receive justice." "Nonsense!" Yan Ying was the first to snap. "His Highness the Prince of Qi was devoted and loyal. How could he harm the previous emperor? This is no more than an unfounded attack." Shen Qiao couldn't help but glance to the side. Duo Yan was hiding behind Yuan Xian, and there was both alarm and surprise on her face. He'd always been slow when it came to scheming and plotting, and he'd always been willing to take others in completely good faith. But after everything he'd been through, Shen Qiao, too, had begun to follow Yan Wushi's ways when it came to approaching problems. Yuan Yun knew that Du Yan had seen his act of patricide, And his uncle had also held much military power for a long time, with a whole slew of impressive military achievements. Terrified that Yuan Xian would become a threat, he'd simply opted to land the first strike by pinning the crime on Yuan Xian. Whether people believed it was not a concern. Duo Yan was just a little girl. Even if she did speak the truth, it would only become one of many rumors. After all, he was Yuwen Yong's son. No matter how foolish he was, there was no shortage of methods he could employ as the ruler. In comparison, Yuan Xian was too passive. Today's events were unlikely to end well. Naturally, everything Shen Qiao could think of, Yuan Xian could too. Within the span of a moment, many thoughts passed through Yuan Xian's mind. In truth, back during Yuwen Yong's reign, Yan Wuxi had sought him out. He told him clearly that he was willing to use Huan Yuesek's power and influence to support him in accomplishing great things, replacing Yuan Yun as the crown prince. But Yuan Xian hadn't agreed. Later, when Yuwen Yong suddenly became bedridden from serious illness, Bian Yanmei, too, had insinuated that he needed to start making preparations. But at that time, Yuan Xian still hadn't made up his mind, and in the end, he was unwilling to do something so subversive to heaven's will. Bian Yanmei didn't urge him any further. In the end, after Yuwen Yong passed, everyone within the Bian residence vanished without a trace in the span of a single night. In contrast, thanks to that one mistake of his, Yuan Xian had fallen into the situation Yan Wuxi had predicted. Yan Wuxi had once told him that the moment Yuwen Yong passed, Yuan Yun would definitely move against his uncle. And now, things had proceeded exactly as he said. Yuan Xian heaved a sigh. With an indescribable emotion twisting in his heart, he turned to Yuan Qing and said, I am completely loyal to our sovereigns. The sun and moon can bear witness. The previous emperor knew this, and his majesty knows this. The entirety of the court and military knows this as well. The day his majesty passed away, I indeed visited the palace, but at that time his majesty was drowsing, so I left within 15 minutes. I only knew of his majesty's passing afterward, so how could I be involved? Yuan Qing's expression was uncomfortable. Your esteemed words should be said before his majesty, Prince of Qi. I'm only here as the messenger. I have no authority. If the Prince of Qi enters the palace, said Su Wei coldly, will he be able to leave in one piece? Yuan Qing's mouth snapped shut, and he didn't speak. In truth, there was no need to answer this question. Everyone already knew the answer. Yuan Dafu, Muran Qing said suddenly, when we left the palace, His Majesty told us that this matter cannot be delayed. The faster we finish, the better. Displeasure surfaced on Yuan Qing's face, but in the end he didn't refute Muran Qin. Instead, he said to Yuan Xian, You heard him too, Prince of Qi. I must ask your esteemed self to please come with me. Your Highness, you must not go, said Yan Ying anxiously. There's no coming back. Everyone in the world knows that this is an unjust accusation, but the Emperor will never let your esteemed self go. If you give my lowly self but a single command, I will stake my life on fighting our way out of this encirclement. Ron Qin sneered. His Majesty has already ensured that there will be no escape wherever you go. Martial experts are lying in ambush all the way from here to outside the city. Even if you manage to leave this place, leaving the capital is impossible. Let's look at the bigger picture now. Everyone in the Prince of Qi's family, both young and old, is still within your residence. Is your esteemed self so callous as to watch them lose their lives? Oh, hello, Esper lady. Yan Qing roared, Muran Qin, you despicable scoundrel! You wretched backstabber! What right do you have to say such things? Madame Qin suddenly said, For many generations, my Sioux family has upheld a great and illustrious reputation. Moral character is ingrained within our bones, and we lack any cowards or reprobates. The Prince of Qi has galloped across the battlefield and made great contributions in establishing the Shou dynasty. Everyone knows this, and the common people hold him in great respect. How can you reduce him to a prisoner based on a single false charge? If His Majesty has any doubts, I'm willing to use the Sioux family to guarantee the Prince of Qi's innocence. That's right, Sue said as well. Our Sioux family is willing to testify on behalf of Prince of Qi. Whether you testify or not, said Muranchi nicely, you'll have to tell that to His Majesty yourself. Don't obstruct us in our official duties. Today we will take Yuan Xian with us. The rest of you need not say any more. Su Qiao glared at him, furious. And what if we refuse to let you take him away? Okay. Muran-chin slowly drew his saber from its sheath. Then I'll have no choice but to commit this offense. Okay, pause. So, Esper Lady, hello. I hope you are doing well. Basically what happened, Yuwen Yong, Old Emperor, dead. We travel around the city with Shen Qiao. He finds that Bianyan Mei is no longer at the manor there. The other manor that Yan Wuxi had deserted. But while he's at Bianyan Mei's manor, he finds a little girl, turns out to be like the niece. No, the niece of the old emperor. She ended up seeing the current emperor actually murdering the old emperor, smothered him. And then the new emperor ended up seeing her as she was like running away. So she's terrified. She is now at the Sioux residence, which is that party that Shen Qiao, that family that he went to when people still didn't realize how much of a badass he was. This is the same family. And they're kind of harboring the other, like, either uncle or second son. Yuwen Yun. Yuan Xian is the person that's currently chilling with the Sioux and is being defended right now. He's being accused of basically doing the crime that Yuan Yun, the current emperor, did in killing his father. So that's kind of where we're at right now. If I missed anything else, people please add it in the chat. I think I covered the basics. Murong Xian Shang. Yuan Qing's words were filled with warning. This is the Su family's second son, but he's also the personal disciple of Chuyang Monastery's Taoist master Yi on Qingchang Mountain. He turned to Yuan Xian. Murong Xiang Shang's words are indeed correct, Prince of Qi. Even if your esteemed self escapes, the people within the Prince of Qi's residence cannot. I beseech you to consider this carefully. And if I don't escape, will His Majesty let the people from my residence off? Yuan Xiang gave a miserable smile and then put Yuan Song down. He turned to Madame Qin and the others, then suddenly gave a deep bow. Yuan Xian gave your esteemed residents much trouble these last few days. I ask the madam to forgive me. I'm grateful for your protection, but one must bear the consequences of their own actions. I will leave with them today. Don't implicate yourselves because of one Yuan Xian. Prince of Qi, said Madame Qin. Yuan Xian took several steps forward and held out his hands to be arrested. Yuan Qing waved his hand, and the soldiers on either side immediately came forth to grab him. Your Highness! Cried Yan Ying. Please take care of Qi Lang, Yan Ying, said Yuan Xian. Take him away from the capital to his uncle's house. Yeah, of course. Yet Murun-shin said, "The Prince of Qi worries too much. Whether it's your esteemed self's children or your subordinates, not a single person from the Prince of Qi's residence will be able to leave the city without the Emperor's permission." Yuan Xian's face fell in horror. "I've already surrendered myself for arrest, but His Majesty still does this to us? Does he wish to kill us to the last?" Yuan Shin paid him no heed. "Soldiers, seize Yuan Long as well." Yan Ying placed himself before Yuan Song, shielding him as though he was ready to protect the child even at the cost of his life. As if Muran Shin would take him seriously. He pushed aside the soldiers next to him, his saber flickering alongside him. Within 3 moves, Yan Ying was already on the ground. With an expression of contempt, Muran Shin reached out to snatch Yuan Song. A sword suddenly appeared before him. The hand holding that sword was incredibly lovely, fair and slender, as perfect as jade without a single flaw. Muran Shin was in no mood to admire it. Without thinking, he reached out to grab the sheath. But the moment he was about to grasp the sheath, he suddenly recognized the sword and realized the identity of its wielder. Dun, dun, dun! And then he recalled a scene within the Ruoqiang ruins when Shen Qiao had fought the pack of apes alone. He couldn't help but pause for a moment. This is the "you done fucked up" moment. And this momentary lapse meant that the sheath was no longer within his reach. Muran Shin quickly stepped backward, evading the wind from the sword as it swept towards his face. Looking at him properly, Shen Qiao hadn't even drawn his sword. His Taoist robes fluttered, and he looked like an immortal, elegant and graceful, detached from the world. He looked more harmless than anyone else present. However, Muran Shin knew that this was a sham. Even if he'd looked down on Shen Qiao before, after Ruoqiang, he could never be contemptuous of the incredible strength within the Taoist ever again. He composed himself and said coldly, "Taoist Master Shen, were you born in the year of the dog? Why is it that every time I meet you, you're always sticking your nose where it doesn't belong?" I take offense at that. Or the moment immediately before finding out, the "why do I hear boss music" moment. You haven't even reached a conclusive verdict on whether the Prince of Qi is guilty, yet you're dragging in a child, Shen Qiao said. Murong Qin sneered. He had the guts to assassinate the previous emperor. Naturally, his entire family must pay the price. Duo Yan couldn't take it anymore. She yelled shrilly, "The Prince of Qi didn't hurt the previous emperor! He was killed by Yuwen Yong!" Other than Sue and Shen Qiao, who already knew the story, everyone's expressions filled with alarm. Yuan Xing couldn't help blurting out, "What did you say?" "Misleading others with heresy!" "Oh, wait. Misleading others with heresy," bellowed Muran-chin. "Capture her! Don't let any of them escape!" At his words, Tuoba Liangzi and Muran Shun also swept in from outside. One of them grabbed at Duoyan, the other laughed at Yuan Song. The 2 children were utterly powerless to put up a fight. They couldn't even see their attackers' movements clearly and could only watch helplessly as they closed in. However, neither Tuba Liangzi nor Muan Shun managed to make contact. A sword glare swept over to the 2 men, brimming with true qi. Like the wind gusting through the towers before a mountain storm, it was forceful enough that the 2 of them reeled back several steps. "Who dares to lay a hand on them while I'm here?" said Shen Qiao. His every word was tranquil and calm, yet within them was a pressure that seemed to weigh 1,000 tons. I totally did not read it that way, but just pretend like I did. And then we're graced with 2 pictures this time. They're so tiny. Shen Qiao has his serious face on. You know you're fucked when he has the serious face on. And when children are involved. He doesn't mess around when there are children involved. Okay. Yeah, they're adorable, but it's like you feel bad for them. Been a very long day, couple days for Duo Yan. Such an awesome picture. He looks like he's about to kick butt, right? Murun-chin gave a savage smile. Let me see then, Shen Qiao. How are you going to protect them all by yourself? His sword slashed in a horizontal arc as he charged forward, sweeping toward Shen Qiao. Who said that he'll be by himself? Yelled Su Qiao. He blocked Murun-chin with his sword, then turned his head to shout at Shen Qiao. Hurry! Take them away! Yeah, butt kicking is imminent. Very much so, Truffle. So your Su family intends a rebellion? Raged Murun-chin. What we want is not rebellion, but justice, Madam Chin's sandalwood wooden cane thudded heavily onto the ground. The cane instantly split into two, and she pulled out a long sword from within. Its blade was like autumn water and infused with murderous intent. A single glance was enough to tell that the weapon was renowned and precious. Su Wei hadn't known that the cane, always by his mother's side, had held such an incredible secret. For a moment, he was dumbstruck. The two sides immediately fell into a disordered mass of fighting, and the Su residence transformed into a battlefield. Yan Ying still wanted to rescue Yuwen Xian, but Yuwen Xian yelled, If I leave with you, it will serve to confirm my guilt in plotting the previous emperor's murder. Take Qilong and leave with Taoist Master Shen. Run as far as you can and never come back. Your Highness! Yan Ying's eyes bulged with rage. He couldn't accept this. Instead, it was Yuan Song who spoke. Father wishes to use his death as an admonishment to clear the Emperor's mind. That way this chaos will abate too. Exactly! Now hurry up and go! Yuan Xian was both gratified and sorrowful. Gratified at how wise and clear-minded his youngest son was at such a tender age. In the future, he would be outstanding within his generation. But he was sorrowful that he would never have the chance to see him grow. If you take me with you, you'll never be able to leave. Furthermore, I cannot abandon everyone still at the Prince of Qi's residence. Yuan Song suddenly fell to his knees and kowtowed thrice to Yuan Xian. Tears flowing down his cheeks like rain, Yuan Xian turned his head away. Yan Ying's eyes were bloodshot. He gritted his teeth and quickly ran forward to pick up Yuan Song, then ran over to meet up with Shen Qiao, who was carrying Duo Yan. With the help of the cover provided by Su Qiao and the others, the two of them rushed out of the Su residence in the direction of the city gates. A scream came from behind them, closely followed by Murun-chin's callous voice. In the event that Yuan Xian resists, His Majesty has commanded that he be killed on the spot to serve as a warning to others. While Murun-shun and Tuba Liangzi were holding off Madame Qin and the others, Murun-chin had taken the opportunity to kill Yuan Xian. He'd even deliberately made more noise, letting Shen Qiao and the others hear it. Bastard! Yan Ying was so enraged he halted. In his arms, Yuan Song had tears streaming down his face. Don't turn back, yelled Shen Qiao. We need to get out first. Murun-chin had already caught up with them from behind. Holding Duo Yan in one arm, Shen Qiao turned around and slashed. However, Murun-chin had once been the #1 martial expert in Qi, and now he was also Chen Gong's right-hand man. Naturally, a single slash wouldn't be enough. His figure flitted swiftly, and his swordplay was unpredictable. He excelled at discerning and striking at his opponent's weak points. But Murunqin knew very well that Shen Qiao was no longer someone he could kill, so he kept close to him and only targeted Duoyan. This would distract Shen Qiao by forcing him to protect Duoyan, thus revealing openings. At the same time, it'd slow Shen Qiao down. Surrounded by the flash of weapons, Duoyan's face was full of terror, yet she said nothing. She only clung tightly to Shen Qiao's neck so as not to distract him for even a moment. Murunqin said severely, "Shen Qiao, you're carrying a little child, and on top of that, you need to tend to those two. Waiting for you on the road from here to outside the city gate are martial experts even stronger than I am. How far do you think you can get by yourself?" Shen Qiao remained unmoved. With the Tao, even tens of thousands of enemies will be unable to cease my advance. His sword sheath surged, and Murunqin was unable to withstand it. As if he'd been struck heavily on the chest, he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, he didn't cower away from the fight, but laughed instead, the sound full of mockery. Tao? And just what is this Tao of yours? During these tumultuous times, only might makes right. If your Tao were of any use, why did you suffer setback after setback? Why did you lose even your position as Xuandu Mountain sect leader? If your Tao were of any use, why has the enlightened ruler you so believed in yet to appear? At these words, Shen Qiao gave a faint smile. This smile was like a breeze caressing spring waves, stirring up ripples within people's hearts. It seemed capable of placating even the rage of the rivers and mountains. The nearby Duoyan stared at him in a trance. Suddenly she forgot her fear, forgot that she was in danger and surrounded on all sides. Many decades later, she would still never forget that smile. However, Shen Qiao spoke not a word, for concealed within the smile was thousands of words of meaning. Those who'd understood would understand. As for those who didn't, what point was there in wasting your words? People of different Tao must go their separate ways. The falling leaves rustled, the chill wind whistled. His once stolid and majestic swordplay underwent a dramatic change, suddenly filling with destructive force. This was the new set of sword techniques that Shen Qiao had created after the battle with Kun Yi at Bixia Sect, born from him merging his comprehension of the sword into his swordplay. Every single move was simple and straightforward, without any fancy tricks, and Murunqin too thought that he'd parried them. But somehow, every time he tried to block and counter, his saber would involuntarily veer off or simply fail to achieve the desired effect. Instead, it felt like Shen Qiao was leading him around by the nose. Shen Qiao held Duoyan with one arm, fending away his opponent with the other. Yet he still managed to force Murunqin into a situation where he was helpless to fight back. Another mouthful of blood spilled forth. Murunqin slammed hard into the wall behind him, and before he could react, the tip of Shen Qiao's sword quivered once and his sword sheath turned substantial, striking an important acupoint in his shoulder and leaving him unable to move. Shen Qiao had no desire to fight, so he didn't pause for even a moment. With a tap of his toes, he swept toward Yan Yang. At this moment, Yan Yang had brought Yuwen Yong almost to the city gates. Having come from a military background, his martial skills lay in the life or death struggles found on the battlefield. His Qinggong wasn't particularly advanced. At this moment, he mustered up his entire strength, hoping that he could dash out of the city and take Yuwen Yong far away from the danger, to fulfill the Prince of Qi's final request. Something whistled through the air. He tilted his head to avoid the arrow shooting over from atop the nearby city gates. Hang on. There we go. As expected, it was as Murunqin had said. Soldiers had been lying in ambush for a while. Every single one of them had their arrows notched. As long as they released thousands of arrows in tandem, Yan Ying and Yuan Song would be perforated like honeycomb. Yan Ying didn't pause for a moment. Instead, he sped up. Dropping his chin, he said to Yuan Song, Qilang, you must listen to me. In the next moment, I shall shield you. Once the shower of arrows abate, they will need to re-knock their arrows. Take this short respite to run along the city walls. There lies a small door that is unlocked. I'll guard your back. Only think about running forward. Taoist Master Shen is right behind us, and he'll catch up very soon. At that time, just follow him. Pay no heed to anything else, and whatever you do, don't look back. Do you understand? Yuan Xian had dearly loved Yuan Song from a young age, believing him to be the most promising of all the Yuan family's children, and this was proof of how intelligent he was. How could he fail to understand the implications behind Yan Ying's words? Hearing these words, he gritted his teeth hard. Uncle Yan! Yan Ying knew he'd understood. His lips stretched into a grimace as he evaded the arrows pelting down from above. A short while later, his back was pierced through with arrows, but he only grabbed Yuan Song harder, his feet not slowing for even an instant. He raced towards the unlocked side door while carrying Yuan Song. Many soldiers wielding spears came to impede him, but he beat each of them back. Go! Hurry up and run! Run outside, he yelled, and released Yuan Song. Don't shoot! Hold! A figure dashed atop the city gates, stopping the soldiers who were preparing to fire a second volley of arrows. When the gate guards saw who the newcomer was, none of them dared to act rashly. However, the person next to the guard said, Continue shooting! Without my command, no one's allowed to stop. Hold! Furifuricchin yelled. Commander-in-Chief, His Majesty didn't order you to kill the Prince of Qi's entire family. Why are you doing this? Liu Feng laughed. Duke of Su, I remember that the Prince of Qi, Yuan Xian, once advised the previous emperor to be wary of you. Yet you don't hate him. Instead, you're stepping forward to speak for him. Where's the logic here? The Prince of Qi's advice to the former emperor was simply him carrying out his duty, said Furifuricchin. It was his desire to help the public. I'm not so wretched that I lack even this tiny amount of tolerance. But this child is innocent. Why not let him go, Commander-in-Chief? Consider it a good deed. Liu Feng reconsidered. Yuan Xian held incredible prestige with both the court and the common folk. Now, the emperor's attack had been too abrupt, so many people were caught off guard and unable to respond. Once the storm passed, there would certainly be many people coming forth to plead on behalf of the Prince of Qi's family. So why should Liu Feng involve himself in something so inauspicious? Very well, he said. I'll leave the Duke of Su some face. However, I must remind you that it's useless even if I show mercy. His Majesty has already dispatched martial experts to lie in ambush outside the city. Even if this child manages to leave these gates, only death awaits him still. Furifuricchin's heart thumped once, and he couldn't resist turning to look at the area beyond the city. From high up, he saw crystal clear Yuan Song stumbling out of the city gates, but 3 people already walking towards him. One was bald, one was missing an arm, and the last had all his limbs, an impressive air about him. Any of those 3 would count as top-class martial artists within the Jianghu. Using them to surround a little child was truly like cracking a nut with a sledgehammer. Furifuricchin didn't recognize the bald man nor the one-armed one, but he did recognize the leftmost one. Chen Gong? His Majesty places so much importance on Yuan Song that he sent even Chen Gong? Everyone knew that the Duke of Shao, Chen Gong, had won the emperor over and was his new favorite official. He'd presented him with the Tai Yi and introduced He Huan sect to him, thus diluting the authority of the Buddhist discipline. While they were at it, He Huan sect also replaced the influence of Huan Yue sect once had in their close relationship with the crown. Yuwen Yong was leaping to establish a system of checks and balances, so Chengong garnering his favor had gone as smoothly as water flowing through a canal. At Furifuriccin's side, Lu Feng said, "One must pull the grass up at the roots. Everyone speaks of how gifted and intelligent Yuan Shilang is. His Majesty fears that letting him go will be like turning a tiger to its lair, thus planting latent threats for himself in the future." I mean, yes, but also, what the fuck? During their conversation, Yuan Song had already stopped in his tracks. He stared at the three people before him as if he didn't know how to respond. Bao Yun smiled at him. "Yuan Shilang, I advise you not to run anymore. His Majesty ordered us to capture you, dead or alive. If you listen and return with us, you'll save yourself much physical suffering." Furifuricchin watched from afar and sighed to himself. Was even the last of the Yuan family bloodline doomed to vanish here? As he thought this, he saw a man's silhouette flit over from within the city. When the man saw that the gates were shut, he simply leapt into the air. As if he were treading on clouds, he soared up and up. Before anyone on the wall could react, he'd already flown past them and was drifting downward, now beyond the walls. Like, this turns up a lot and I agree. What the fuck? It seems really harsh. Like, yeah. Like, it may be smarter, but it's also really fucked up. This level of Qinggong had truly achieved transcendence. Even those like Liu Feng and Puliuru Jian were already dumbstruck, let alone the other soldiers. Addressing the three gentlemen who lost to me, please forgive this humble Taoist for arriving late. As if he'd descended from heaven, Shen Qiao landed before the trio, holding Duo Yan in his arms. You're so lucky that's not the last chapter. You have one more chapter, and then the book will be over. But it got real close to that being the cliffhanger before the new year. Chapter 85. I'm going to do 157. Okay, chapter 85, A Radiant Showing. Everyone had already been long acquainted with each other. No introductions were needed for their reunion this time. One of Yuan Shou's arms had been lost to Shen Qiao's hands, so the moment he saw him, his murderous intent surged. More than anyone else here, he wished to kill Shen Qiao and satisfy his hatred. But Chen Gong still managed to smile. "It's been a while since we parted at Ruoqiang. Has Taoist Master Shen been well?" Shen Qiao seemed unwilling to speak with him. He didn't even bother with a perfunctory response. In the past, Chen Gong had possessed an astonishingly high sense of pride. Whenever he encountered someone looking down on him, he'd explode into a rage, rolling up his sleeves to brawl with them without a second word. However, times had changed. Now he held great power and standing, so his outlook and mind had expanded to match. Not only did Shen Qiao's cold shoulder fail to anger him, he instead began to persuade him with a pleasant smile. "Taoist Master Shen, Buddhism and Taoism were prohibited for a long time, but the moment His Majesty ascended, he removed those bans. Does the Taoist Master understand what this means?" Shen Qiao still remembered. Back then, at the broken-down temple, Chen Gong had regarded even a single donkey meat sandwich as a treasure, and he'd barely been able to read. Yet now, he was talking to Shen Qiao about the Emperor's goals and lifting the bans of Buddhism and Taoism. In all likelihood, the stepmother who'd thrown Chen Gong out of the house would scarcely be able to dream what her stepson had become in the present. When he compared the two, Shen Qiao could only feel that life was truly unpredictable and unfathomable, especially during turbulent times. As long as a person was willing to throw away their shame and ethics, as long as they were ambitious, bold, and unscrupulous enough, they could become like Chengong, a role model who'd encourage others to advance themselves to greater heights. What does it mean? Shen Qiao asked indifferently. Chengong smiled. It means that His Majesty holds no prejudices towards Buddhism and Taoism, he said, regardless of which discipline, as long as they're willing to pledge allegiance to the court. His Majesty will extend to them fair and equal treatment. Taoist Master Shen is from Xuandu Mountain. Once you were chosen as its sect leader, one who was absolutely dutiful. Yet villains took advantage of you and stole your position. If you wish, His Majesty is willing to fully support you in recovering your position. Currently, Xuandu Mountain's standing within the Taoist discipline is gradually being supplanted by Qingchang Mountain, but with the court's support, regaining its glory as the world's foremost Taoist sect would be as simple as snapping one's fingers. What does Taoist Master Shen think? Duyan was bright. Though what he was saying about the various power factions within the Jianghu was beyond her knowledge, she could discern the intent and persuasion within Chengong's words. The other side had 3 people, yet they seemed so terrified of the strength of this Taoist master carrying her that they'd rather try luring him in with benefits first than coming to blows with him. Was this enough to persuade Shen Qiao? Duoyan was a little anxious, and she couldn't help but clench his lapels a little tighter. Poor baby. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Yuwen Song, whose hand was currently in Shen Qiao's. Though his face was stiff, his gaze too revealed some anxiousness. He was clearly worried about the same thing. Bao Yun joined in. That's right, Taoist Master Shen. Eternal friends don't exist in this world, and neither do eternal enemies. Yihuan's sect has offended you in the past, but that was because we were on different sides, serving our own masters. Before, San Jingxing told me that the reason you fell into his hands back then was that Yan Wuxi restrained you and served you to him, then lured him in with his words. That's why he made such an oversight. In the end, our common enemy should be Yan Wuxi. His Majesty wishes to draw in talent from all over the world. Our Yihuan sect was at odds with the Buddhist sects in the past, but now we are all willing to dedicate ourselves to His Majesty. If the Taoist sects join in as well, it would make for an even more wonderful story. Once the world is unified, Taoism's standing will surge like a boat on rising waters. With how much His Majesty values Taoism, His Majesty would be absolutely delighted to grant you even the position of state preceptor, never mind Xuandu Mountain's sect leader. He'd already witnessed Shen Qiao's strength that day. Yan Shou's arm had been severed before his eyes. Bao Yun had assessed that even if he fought Shen Qiao, his fate wouldn't be much better than Yan Shou's. As for Yan Shou, he wished to exact revenge for the arm, but he was not blinded by hatred. Against such a powerful opponent, he naturally couldn't take him on alone. If Bai Rong were here, she would certainly be filled with awe. When she'd first met Shen Qiao, he'd been blind and downtrodden, without even a shred of martial arts. He could only lie down to be trampled by others. Yet, within the short span of a few years, Shen Qiao, who'd once had nothing, whom everyone could walk over, had climbed back up, step by step, to the point where even Yihuan sect elders wouldn't be willing to battle him without preparation. When the previous emperor was alive, I once entered the palace and met him, Shen Qiao said. At that time, he already mentioned his willingness to lend me a hand, to make Xuandu Violet Mountain a cornerstone of Taoism. If I were going to agree, I'd have agreed back then. Why would I wait until now? If we were to discuss prestige and integrity, surely the previous emperor was more reliable than Yuwen Yong. His contempt for Yuwen Yong was clear in his words. Very well, said Chengong. It seems like Taoist Master Shen would rather risk himself for these 2 utterly unrelated little children. This Chen will give you a reminder out of consideration for our past friendship. Friendship. Mm-hmm. To do this is to directly oppose the court. From now on, the Buddhists, Huan sect, and even members of the court itself will never accept you. Once the Shou dynasty unifies the world, you become the common enemy of everyone beneath heaven. Have you thought it through carefully? Shen Qiao showed an expression of slight astonishment. Friendship, he repeated. What friendship do we have? The friendship whereupon you sold me out for personal gain, where in order to avoid becoming Mu-Tipo's male concubine, you directed the disaster to me. To think a day would come where this kind gentleman could jeer at someone. If not for Chen Gong's utter shamelessness and his terrible impression of Huan sect, Shen Qiao wouldn't have spoken these words either. At this moment of the past, a strange expression flitted over Chen Gong's face. There was embarrassment, guilt, as well as rage. It was like his face had been physically ripped off. He seethed with pain. You're always behind the times, Shen Qiao sneered. Since that's the case, you can't blame me. Yan Shou had been gnashing his teeth at Shen Qiao for a while. In his eyes, Bao Yun and Chen Gong's words were utter drivel. In the Jianghu, agency was given according to one's fists. The ones who punched the hardest, whose martial arts were the strongest, had the final say. The loss of his arm that day was a deep shame, one that he'd never forget his entire life. Of course you're never gonna forget. You lost a fucking arm. Like, who would forget the arm? Like, just saying, regardless of whether Shen Qiao agreed to Chen Gong's persuading, he would kill him. So as soon as those words were out of Chen Gong's mouth, Yan Shou suddenly sprang forth, throwing himself at Yuwen Song next to Shen Qiao with the speed of lightning. His goal was clear. He'd attack Yuwen Song, distracting Shen Qiao by forcing him to protect him and reveal a weak point. Yan Shou's speed was immense. His plan had only just formed, and his hand was already reaching towards Yuwen Song, just about to graze his hair. As expected, Shen Qiao lifted his sword to block, and Yan Shou had already predicted this. He suddenly twisted to strike at Du Yan within Shen Qiao's arms. This blow connected, landing right on the crown of Du Yan's head. It was certain the girl's skull would split open and she'd die, hemorrhaging all over her face. Naturally, Bao Yun and Chen Gong didn't just sit back. The moment Yan Shou attacked, the two of them moved as well, attacking Shen Qiao from separate directions. Just a moment. Chen Gong's martial skills seem to have improved again since Ruiqiang. His sword moved like the rolling waves, as swiftly as a poisonous snake, accompanied by layers of rippling Chu Qi. A careful study revealed that his martial arts contained extraordinary multitudes. They were the amalgamation of the strengths of multiple schools. Chen Gong began as a court favorite. Shen Qiao had given him a glimpse of the martial path, but the one who'd personally taught him martial arts was Mu-Tipo. However, Mu-Tipo's martial prowess could only be considered second-rate, and Chen Gong quickly realized that what he could learn from him was limited. With his incredible talent and perfect memory, he began to set ever grander goals. After he began following the Emperor of Qi, Gao Wei, Chen Gong was naturally able to meet even more of Qi's martial experts. Among these were Murongqin and the people of Huan sect. Chen Gong integrated the martial arts he'd learned from the Shu Yang strategy scroll that he'd unconsciously memorized, and unbeknownst to himself, he began to climb higher and higher up the martial path. As someone this gifted, akin to Fine Jade, he might not be inferior to the likes of Shen Qiao or Yan Wuxi. He could even surpass them. If Tao Hongjing were here, he'd also have praised him, declaring him a heaven-blessed prodigy. Tumultuous times produce not only heroes, but ambitious conquerors as well. This world had given Chen Gong plenty of space to extend himself. He was destined to be extraordinary. Here and now, the sword move he struck against Shen Qiao seemed to contain a modified version of Muron Shin's saber technique, but also a branch of Zongnan's sex sword techniques. It carried both the severe imperiousness of the saber as well as the flitty agility of Zongnan's sword sect. The sword chi rose in flurries like white snow or flittering catkins drifting down flake by flake. They seemed everywhere, yet almost imperceptible, and so they were difficult for an opponent to read. Yan Shou was filled with loathing, while Bao Yun was waiting for a chance to strike Shen Qiao unawares. On top of that, Chen Gong kept oppressively close with every step he took. None of the three were easy pickings, yet Shen Qiao used only one arm to fend them off, still holding Duo Yan in the other. Furthermore, he needed to protect Yuan Song, all while facing attacks pelting down at him from every direction, like an all-encompassing net that left him with no room to escape. But Shen Qiao didn't run. In fact, he didn't even back up. He drew his sword from its sheath and slashed horizontally at the three enemies approaching from three directions. He only used a single move, and it was one without flourish, plain and ordinary. However, atop the city gates and sweating in fear, Furifuricchin could faintly hear the sound of roaring waves, almost as though they were rolling in from the distant horizon. Yet they also sounded like a rumbling coming from deep within the earth. He could see very clearly that as Shen Qiao's sword swept outward, the blade seemed to transform into white waves that undulated outward instantly, one by one. When filled with true strength, all things become ephemeral. True art is unassuming, and simplicity is the greatest sophistication. Chen Gong, Yan Shou, and Bao Yun, the white waves engulfed all three of them. And though there was clearly only one Shen Qiao, he seemed to have split into many. All three of his assailants felt an incomparable oppressiveness, and not only were their attacks nullified, they rebounded back to the men, forcing them to suffer their own techniques. Liu Fang was no stranger to martial arts, and he immediately shouted in alarm, "Is that Shen Qiao a monster? How did he suddenly split himself into innumerable copies?" "That's a type of illusion," explained Furifuricchin, derived from his echelon of the sword. When it comes to the path of his sword, Shen Qiao's achievements there have already attained the pinnacle of perfection. I fear that even if you compared him to Qi Fengwei of the past, he'd already surpassed his master. Even Liu Fang had heard of Qi Fengwei before. There were only a few Grandmaster level martial artists in the world, but each of those Grandmasters could doubtlessly enter the midst of thousands of horseback soldiers, behead a specific person, then leave without issue. The court would do everything to win them over. Even someone as headstrong as Yuwen Yong had relied heavily on Yan Wuxi, and he'd never put on an emperor's airs before him. Currently, Shen Qiao might lack tempering compared to a true Grandmaster, but this tempering wouldn't take 8 or 10 years to achieve. Hearing this, Liu Fang became somewhat afraid, and he said hurriedly, "Just now, I didn't order them to shoot at Shen Qiao. You saw that too, Duke of Siu. We were under the Emperor's orders. We had no choice. If Taoist Master Shen misunderstands anything, you must help me clear it up." Furifuricchin agreed. Yes, the commander-in-chief had his official duties and possessed no personal motives. Jian naturally understands. Liu Fang inwardly breathed a sigh of relief. His gaze was drawn back to the fighting beneath them. Do you think Chen Gong's group can win? They weren't the only people watching the fight. The soldiers atop the gates were staring fixedly at the peerlessly marvelous altercation. Beneath their gazes, weapons danced and flashed, murderous intent surging in all directions. Shen Qiao continued to protect the two little children, yet despite this burden, he was able to move with ease. The soldiers couldn't help but show expressions of great admiration. The people of these times valued heroes. Although they were hampered by the emperor's orders and forced to attack Yuan Song, Yuan Xian had always possessed great prestige within the military. Shen Qiao should have had nothing to do with this, yet he was willing to place himself in danger for two small children. How could the common people, seeing this level of broad mindedness and sentimentality, not be filled with deep veneration? The day Shen Qiao had killed Kun Yi, only the members of Bixia's sect had been present. Though it was an earth-shaking scene, very few people knew about it. But at this time, all eyes were on him as he fought against heavy odds, single-handedly overcoming greater numbers. With this battle, his name was destined to shake the world itself. Shen Qiao shielded Yuan Song behind him as he held Duo Yan in one arm. He constructed layer upon layer of sword screens, temporarily warding off Chen Gong and Bao Yun. The blade's edge quivered, then like the bright moon piercing through the clouds, its radiance overflowed as it thrust viciously at Yan Shou. Yan Shou sent out 3 palm strikes in succession, yet they all rebounded off the sword chi, forcing him to fall back several steps. He'd thought that with Chen Gong and Bao Yun's participation, Shen Qiao would be overwhelmed and unable to pay attention to him. Never did he imagine that Shen Qiao would ignore the other two entirely. The sword chi swept forth with a force that could overturn rivers and seas, rolling towards him. He quickly raised his palm to meet it, but the instant he raised his arm, he felt an unbearable piercing pain. The sword glare had already reached his face. His entire hand was engulfed within the boundless white light. The pain was like the day he'd lost his arm. He couldn't help the terror surging within his heart, and for the first time in his life, he wanted to turn tail and flee. His will to fight vanished, his murderous intent forcibly wiped clean. At this moment, all Yan Shou wanted and could think of was escaping in one piece. But he'd forgotten. The moment the thought of retreat had arisen, he'd already lost. The boundless sword glare monopolized his vision, but there was only one sword, and what pierced through Yan Shou's back and into his heart was also only that one sword. Yan Shou lowered his head. He saw the point of Shan He Tong Bei, already dyed red. That was his blood. The blood-stained Shan He Tong Bei continued to hum. It was a very quiet sound, but Yan Shou strangely found that he could hear it, and very clearly at that. Perhaps because the blade was buried inside his body. Before he could confirm this, Shen Qiao had already yanked the sword out of his back. Yan Shou stumbled forward several steps, then collapsed to his knees with a thud. Behind him, the fight continued, but his participation was no longer required. Filled with awe, Puliru Jian couldn't help but yell from atop the city gates, "A true hero indeed!" Though the people around him said nothing, their expressions clearly showed that they felt the same. No matter the time and place, such an illustrious hero would be praised and admired. Below the city walls, Yan Shou's death filled Bao Yun and Chen Gong's faces with alarm, but they didn't cease their attack. Instead, with the cutting fierceness of a tempest, they both chose to avoid a direct confrontation with Shen Qiao, instead targeting Duo Yan and Yuan Song. That's the best way to piss him off. Like, you go after the children, you'd be better off facing him. Since Shen Qiao had chosen to make those two children his weak spots, attacking those children sent a message. In matters of life and death, all that was important was victory or defeat, and regardless of the means. They couldn't kill Shen Qiao today, he would definitely become a fatal calamity to them in the future. This thought surfaced almost simultaneously within Chen Gong and Bao Yun's minds. Chen Gong's blade was incredibly swift, but Bao Yun's moves were more of the uncanny kind. One attack from the left and the other from the right as they worked in tandem. Both knew that, regardless of how powerful Shen Qiao's sword she was, it couldn't flow ceaselessly like an inexhaustible river. You want to bet on that? Because I think he's got a bit of the ability to go for a while. Shen Qiao also sprinted toward Yuan Song, but it wasn't to shield him. Instead, he tossed Duo Yan to him. Without even without his instructions, Yuan Song understood what he was doing in an instant. He stretched out both arms and caught Duo Yan, who was a full head shorter than him. With a furl of his sleeves, Shen Qiao flung the two of them several yards away, then turned around and swept back. He charged with the force of a great surging wave, his figure like an arching stone bridge surging upward as it displayed itself. One could vaguely see the might of a king descending from the heavens, a complete reversal from the unbiased and tranquil energy released by his sword in the past. Chen Gong dissolved this momentum entirely, then stabbed his blade into Shen Qiao's sword screen, his movements confident and smooth. Delight surged within him, but that same instant he was stunned to realize that his target had somehow become Bao Yun. Behind him! His sense of vigilance elicited, he abruptly turned his head and saw a blast of sword chi soar outward. But Bao Yun had also encountered the same misdirection, and he couldn't pull back in time. His palm struck towards Chen Gong. Chen Gong, halfway through his sword move, was forced to hurriedly withdraw. He leaned to one side to avoid the blast from Bao Yun's palm. Yet Shen Qiao neither swayed nor moved. He'd become one with his sword as he rushed towards Bao Yun. When two tigers fought, one must inevitably fall. Initially, Bao Yun had used all his strength in this palm strike, but was forced to withdraw half his internal energy when his target suddenly became Chen Gong. However, now that he'd already struck out, it was difficult to restrain his momentum. Together with his sword glare, Shen Qiao charged towards him like an outpouring of raging waves carrying the momentum of 1,000 tons. Fresh blood spurted from Bao Yun's body. In the blink of an eye, a bloody hole had opened in his throat. To think that two elders from Huan sect had died at Shen Qiao's sword, one after the other, was unbelievable. Chen Gong could see that the situation was dire. Right as Shen Qiao had stabbed the sword at Bao Yun just now, he turned around and began sprinting towards the two children. Their goal today had always been to detain Yuan Song. It was Yan Shou who'd moved by himself, dead set on killing Shen Qiao. If he could just bring Yuan Song away now, his mission would be considered accomplished. But he'd never expected that Shen Qiao's sword had already attained such heights. Though he just killed Bao Yun, he was already sprinting towards Chen Gong, his Qinggong so brilliant that he'd practically left no trace. With that speed, even if Chen Gong managed to grab Yuan Song, he'd still have to fight Shen Qiao directly. On one hand, the grass must be pulled up by the roots. On the other hand, his life would be in danger. There was no doubt which was more important to Chen Gong. Chen Gong made his decision promptly. He abandoned Yuan Song and twisted his body around to sprint towards the city. He pushed his Qinggong to the utmost, stepping along the jutting bricks within the wall. In the blink of an eye, he was already atop the gates. Shen Qiao had no intention of giving chase. Carrying Duo Yan and Yuan Song, he sprinted in the opposite direction instead. He sheathed his sword, and with the child in each arm, Shen Qiao sprinted a mile or two in one go, running until they were well out of sight of the city gates. Only then did he stop. He placed the two children down and stumbled forward several steps before coughing up a large mouthful of blood. "Toastmaster Shen!" Duo Yan cried out in alarm as she quickly ran up to support him. Though Yuan Song didn't speak, he too had grabbed Shen Qiao's other arm as he struggled to support the majority of Shen Qiao's weight. "It's no problem." Shen Qiao held his chest as he strenuously tried to comfort the two, his mouth filled with a salty sweet taste of blood. Bao Yun and the others weren't amateurs. Even if they didn't rank among the top 10, martial experts of the level it took to become an elder within Yihuan sect were still rare within the Jianghu. With Shen Qiao's current level of ability, killing 2 of them in the same breath sounded impressive, but he'd paid quite a steep price as well. During their fight just now, he'd suffered several palm strikes. Had Chenggong not been fooled and frightened by the unyielding facade forcibly put on and observed him carefully instead, he wouldn't have found it difficult to realize that Shen Qiao's strength was spent, flagging like an arrow nearing the end of its flight. Tears welled up in Duo Yan's eyes, but she forcibly held them back. "You must not cry," Yuwen Song said to her. "Ahead of us is a pavilion. I've been there before. Let's go there and sit for a while." Shen Qiao thought about how none of the city soldiers had come out to pursue them when they'd been fighting earlier. It seemed that quite a few people were secretly sympathizing and assisting regarding Yuan Xian's affairs. Determining that there shouldn't be any danger for now, he didn't force out his true qi to take them away. Duo Yan quickly nodded, and the 2 of them supported Shen Qiao as they continued forward. After a fairly short walk, they turned a corner and saw a small pavilion, as expected. However, there were 2 people standing inside, and there was also a horse tied outside. "It's father!" Before Shen Qiao could react, Duo Yan's sharp eyes had already recognized the other man, but she didn't abandon Shen Qiao and kept supporting him until they reached the pavilion. Only when they went inside did she leap over. "Father!" "Ayan!" Duo Yi grabbed his daughter in a tight embrace, his face full of worry, instantly transforming into surprised joy. Observing this scene, Yuwen Song couldn't help but recall his own father and his tragic death. He had held back his tears as long as he could, but now they finally trickled down his face. A hand covered his head and gently caressed it, bringing with it warmth. It was Shen Qiao. Yuwen Song didn't speak, and he didn't sob, but he couldn't resist pressing closer to Shen Qiao, snuggling up toward him. Within a short period of time, a sense of wordless trust and tacit understanding had formed between them, something they'd obtained through their life and death ordeal. Duo Yi cupped his hands at Shen Qiao and bowed. "I'm grateful to esteemed Taoist Master Shen for saving my daughter. Yi will never forget this kindness and virtue for the rest of his life." This gratefulness came from the depths of his heart. Hence, he'd even used the most respectful title for Taoists when addressing Shen Qiao. In the past, Shen Qiao's master, Qi Fingwei, too, had been addressed as esteemed Taoist master. Duo Lang Jun need not be so courteous. Shen Qiao's voice was somewhat hoarse and feeble. "This lowly one is Jiangnan sect Zheng Sun Sheng," said the man who stood next to Duo Yi. "I met esteemed Taoist Master Shen once back during the Su family's birthday banquet. Perhaps you still remember me." He fished a small bottle from his lapels. "These are jade dew pills. Zongnan sect uses them to heal internal injuries, and they are quite effective. Please take them, esteemed Taoist Master Shen." Shen Qiao didn't show him any deference. He thanked him and took the bottle. So what they mean there is, like, usually, like, you're supposed to, like, refuse. I think it's 3 times. But Shen Qiao's like, "Yeah, I'm not playing. I'm injured." Or at least once, maybe not 3. Maybe it's gifts that's 3 times. I don't know. "The injustice suffered by the Prince of Qi is known to all," said Zhang Sun Shang. "It's unfortunate that his greatest achievements ended up threatening the Emperor, who reacted so perversely. Framing your own loyal subject. Everyone is enraged but too afraid to speak. Because Shang still has his family to take care of, he had many misgivings about what he should do. But seeing the esteemed Taoist Master's deeds today, I am deeply ashamed. Please accept this bow from Shang." Shen Qiao reached out to stop him. There are thousands of Dao, and the path everyone chooses is different. There was never anything to criticize. If not for your support behind the scenes, I wouldn't have been able to extricate myself so smoothly. The Su family isn't like me. I'm alone in this world without any attachments. But the entire Su clan, young and old, remain in Chang'an, yet they still fought together with me against Yuwen Yong just now. Will they be all right? Yes, said Zhang Sun Shang. Please be at ease. I'm from the Zhangnan sect, and the Zhang Sun family still has some connections in Chang'an. We can secretly bring the whole Su family over to Zhangnan sect for refuge. Your esteemed self can also bring Yuan Shi Lang up the mountain. Zhangnan sect may not be a large or famous sect, but we still possess enough courage to face the Lord of Shou's underlings. Yet Shen Qiao shook his head. No, Zhangnan Mountain is too close to Chang'an. If Yuan Yun wishes to pursue things to the end, we won't be able to stay for that long. In the end, I wish to bring him further away until we're completely out of danger. Then we'll see. Zhang Sun Shang and Duo Yi shared a glance. Very well, said Zhang Sun Shang. This horse is no winged steed, but it's still a fine mount of the sort that's hard to come by. Your health isn't very good, esteemed Taoist master, so I believe that riding should be much more convenient than walking. And that is the end of Book 3 of Thousand Autumns. So we kind of ended it where he's now going to be going on a quest with Yuan Song. And we will see where they head. I think I have an idea, but you'll have to tune in on the 1st of the new year at 8 o'clock to find out. Before then, the Days of Fickmas 2025 starts on Thursday, and all of them will release at 6. Every day at 6. 6 Central Standard Time. So usually when we film it's 8, so just 2 hours earlier is when they release. They will not be live. They've already been recorded, but you will be able to find them in a few places. So they will appear in the live streams, but they are way down because I recorded these previously. They also have their own playlist that should appear. I will double check on Thursday to make sure it appears. And then also every day I made sure that in posts they will have the attached video along with the title and author. And in every video, the actual fic is linked to each video. So make sure to go show the authors some love. But yes, I will see all of you in 2026. Have a fantastic holiday, whatever you celebrate or don't. Just have a fantastic time. Thank you so much for joining me this year. And I will see you all in the new year. Bye-bye. Good night. Goodbye and good night.